The views expressed, opinions given, and any communication made between the hosts and guests of What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal Show do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Para X Radio, EMC Network, or all services that play this show. The hosts and services are not responsible for the actions of their guests, and the original rights of all intellectual property is retained by the creator, and all work is used with either permission or Creative Commons license. The show is for entertainment purposes only. I'm horror author T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm horror author and filmmaker Phil Thomas.
And tonight we're asking you,
what are you afraid of?
It's Halloween time. What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal Shows is episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween, with author Daniel Kraus, who will be appearing later in the show. Hey, Phil!
Hey, Fox, how you doing?
I'm doing... I gotta tell you, I was trying to get into the Halloween spirit the last couple of days. I'm watching My Angel. I'm reading scary stories and books about hauntings and watching horror movies, and I just wasn't getting there. I was feeling stressed, and then something happened today. I don't know what it was. It just clicked, and all of a sudden I'm like, it's Halloween!
Certain days I was in the Halloween spirit, like, especially like last week and the week before, when I was like putting all the decorations up, and I was just like, yeah, really into it. Now that they're all up, I'm like, okay, they're up, cool. It's like,
so, what else is there?
So I want to, I want to keep myself in the spirit, and I was going to watch a horror movie last night, and I got busy with other stuff. It never happened. So I really, either tonight or tomorrow, I definitely want to watch some horror movies. I want to watch, this movie I heard about. Maybe you've heard of it, called Candy Corn.
Yes, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Okay, yeah. I've been hearing some good mixed things, but I've been hearing some mostly decent things about it. Like, the people that like it really like it, which is a good sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's other people that are just like, whatever. But the people that like it are really, fanatical about it. So and it's got Courtney Gaines from Children of the Corn, and has PJ Souls from Halloween. And
it's Halloween weekend, and a group of bullies are planning their annual hazing on local outcast Jacob Atkins. When they take things too far, he's resurrected to seek revenge against those who wronged him. Kind of like a Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got Tony Todd, I believe.
Oh, Tony Todd, yeah. Wonderful Tony Todd. See, Tony Todd, Justin Mawbray, Johnny Cooper, and Courtney Gaines. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I have to rent it. I pay money for it, but hey, why not?
It looks like it might be on Hulu. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it looks like it's on Hulu, so I can watch that. I have been looking at the various streaming services, trying to coordinate my Halloween movie watching experience, and they've been absolute jerks. I mean, last year, Shudder was coming out, Amazon Prime was pretty solid, Netflix was there, and Hulu, but this year, there are so many sub-channels now.
I know.
Like on Amazon Prime alone, there's like 4 horror stations, and they often either overlap, or one of them has one movie I want to see, and then I gotta log on to another one to see another. Like, they've got the zombie movies all over the place now.
Yeah, they're no longer condensed any longer.
Yeah,
that's gone.
Last year I thought I was giving up DVDs, but now it's like, okay, well, I need to order these DVDs because everything's not consolidated anymore.
Right, you're right.
So I think I'm going to order Return of the Living Dead 2. Great film. Wait, Return of the Living Dead 2? Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if I've actually ever even seen that, to be honest. The first one is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, but I don't actually know if I've ever even seen the second one.
2 was fantastic, and
Really?
we'll get into that in just a moment. This is episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween. We've got author Daniel Kraus on this excellent pre-Halloween episode, and we've got a wonderful ghost story called Hospital Footsteps that was sent into the Fox True Ghost Story Project, which was sort of the precursor to the show when I set up a little blog and started collecting ghost stories, and I would post one every day. It was a lot of fun, and our show grew out of that. And we also have an excerpt from his new book, The Living Dead, and a great little short fiction piece that I did called How My Battlecraft Guild Survived the Zombie Apocalypse. Oh, Return of the Living Dead 2 was just amazing. In fact, it's probably the first movie that I saw that got me into the zombie genre.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm amazed you haven't seen it before. It's about a kid and his sister, and they just moved into a new condo. And if you remember, the end of Return of the Living Dead 1 went boom with an atomic bomb. Actually, they fired it from artillery over the cemetery.
Right.
That was
all the zombie, everything, yeah.
That was their contingency plan.
Ah, okay.
Remember, they finally called the number on the tank? And they're like, well, the Army's got some sort of contingency plan for this. And then the coordinates come up. And then you see that radioactive shell go into the artillery gun, and boom, and you hear it coming down and whistles. And
well, I'm going to have to watch it now. I think it's on Prime or something.
I believe it is on Prime, yes. In fact, that's where I'll be watching it. But Return of the Living Dead 2 is not anywhere. It's not on any streaming service. It's not even up at Dailymotion or YouTube.
That's what I meant, though. I meant to.
Yeah, but you can.
So I have the first one on Blu-ray because I love it, and send more paramedics.
Yeah, exactly. that whole muddy field they were in outside the mortuary, and which is just so wonderfully symbolic. Now, Return of the Living Dead 2 is available to rent for like $1.99, $2.99.
Okay.
And I highly recommend it. It's a fun story. They added a lot of the humor back to it. It's pretty much a zombie comedy.
Oh, okay. And that's what the first one was. And that's why it was done like very well though.
Yeah, it was.
Because I've seen zombie comedies that are whatever, but I mean this one was done extremely well.
Like our wonderful Zombies of Mass Destruction, done by Kevin Hamadani, who was on the show like 2 years ago. I loved Kevin. And I just got the first 7 free days of Shudder.
Oh, okay.
The first thing I watched on Shudder was something called Haunters, The Art of the Scare.
Oh, yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, 2017. They go and interview people who set up haunted houses, not the professional ones, but people doing it from their own homes.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, like building it. And this one was interesting, and it's not just a haunted house that you walk through and they leap out at you. These are haunted experiences. They essentially, you give them permission to do whatever they want to you, and they torture you like you're a victim.
Okay, wow, that's just... Wow. Yeah, you know what? I could be wrong, but I swore I saw that on one of these streaming apps that I have.
Probably. It's on a few different things, like I said.
Yeah, I probably saw it somewhere. Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of the services are overlapping. But I started watching that today, and he's diehard, and like people are calling the cops, and like the city's trying to shut them down, and they're sending in inspectors, and the neighbors hate it because people are screaming and being tortured, and I don't know how I'd feel about that.
No, I don't know either. But you know what you should watch since you do have Shudder.
Okay.
And the first thing I'm gonna watch if I get Shudder is a movie called Haunt. And I've been following it the last like few days actually. Haunt and Candy Corn, those are like the top 2 right now that are on my mind. And Haunt is a movie produced by Eli Roth.
Okay.
It's about like this haunted attraction that I think kind of like what you just explained. You go in and you have to sign a waiver and all this stuff. But it's a film though; it's not a documentary, you know. Okay. And it's supposed to be really good. Like it's getting like amazing reviews, like in the 90s, like across the board. So people are liking it. So I'm pretty confident it's going to be a good movie. And I that's the reason why I was looking up Shudder, because I want to watch that movie. And there's a few others on there I want to watch. Mm-hmm.
All the Phantasms are available on Amazon Prime. So,
okay. Nice.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to binging those too. But besides,
is that kind of like back in the summer when, I don't know if they still are or not, but when all the Friday the 13th were available, like every single one of them on Prime.
Right.
That was great. I binged every one of them.
Actually, I'm also looking forward to watching the new series Creepshow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been seeing advertising on Shudder. Yeah, that looks good.
And if you go over, there's a great service called Tubi that is...
I have Tubi. Tubi.
They have a lot... They have an excellent horror library. Plus, they have the Masters of Horror that came out a few years ago. Those wonderful anthology stories. So besides watching scary stuff, I've been digging into my paranormal books. And I started reading one last night called Grave's End, a true ghost story by Elaine Marcado. And it's chilling. You know, it's your classic dark spirit demonic haunting. Especially in this strange building that she lives in. And she and her family, they're being terrorized by ghosts that live there. And it's escalating over time. Darker spirits are attacking more and more. What do they call demonic oppression?
Okay,
when they just beat down your spirit. And it's just been such a good book. I nearly read the whole thing last night, and I'm sitting here at 1 a.m., our new apartment, and the door is closed, and it's the kind of book where as you're reading it, you're scared. You're scared in the dark, or you hear a noise. And it makes you jump.
Did you buy this off Amazon?
I did.
Okay.
I did, yeah. The one book that I do want to read is The Living Dead by George Romero, and Daniel Kraus finished it for him. But it's such a long read. I'm probably going to read it towards the end of the month.
Did you say it was over 400 pages?
600.
600 pages, okay.
600, and a large hardback. It's over 600 pages, double-spaced. And we have a wonderful interview with Daniel Kraus. We had such a great time talking to Daniel, and he talked about his writing, his other books, like The Shape of Water that he's co-written, and of course, The Living Dead. But before we do our interview, we have to have a ghost story every episode.
Yes.
And this is a ghost story that was sent in to my old website, the Fox True Ghost Story Project. It was since recorded by David Walton, and it will be available along with our other archive of ghost stories at the website at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com, where you can find all of our previous episodes, plus our archive of ghost stories. Don't forget, we're on Parax Radio Friday nights at 9 p.m. So this is Hospital Footsteps, read by David Walton on episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween.
Would you like some candy, little boy?
Hospital Footsteps by Jamie O'Connell, and read by David Walton. Here's one for you. When I was 16, I was hurt pretty badly and paralysed. You spend a lot of time in the hospital, lying awake, staring at the ceiling. I started counting things to keep my brain from losing it. Cracks in the tiles, tiny holes in the tiles, the number of times the fire alarm blinked in an hour, stuff like that. I also started counting footsteps in the hallway during rounds. One night I was in a lot of pain and couldn't sleep. I started counting footsteps to take my mind off it. A lot of nursing staff wear rubber-soled shoes, and they have a particular squish on linoleum. So it's in the middle of the night, and I hear the tread of heavy shoes. No squish. It caught my attention because it was so out of place. I listened to the thud go down the hall and vanish. A nurse came to check on me and give me meds, and I asked about it. She swore up and down there was no one on the floor with shoes like that. Visitors? It was the middle of the night. Was I hallucinating? My pain meds had worn off. I never heard it again, but I'm convinced it was a ghost.
This is Katrina Weidman of Destination America.
This is George
Nolan Lansdale, creator of the Hap and Leonard series.
This is actor and filmmaker Steve Monarch from Friday the 13th, the series.
This is Heather Taddy from Paranormal State and Alien Highway.
This is Chuck Zukowski from Travel Channel's show Alien Highway.
And you are listening to Ghost Stories and Horror with T. Fox Dunham and Phil Thomas.
With the T. Fox Dunham and Phil Thomas.
Fox and Phil.
Billy and Fox.
What are you afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show.
What are you afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show.
What are you afraid of?
There'd be no Philadelphia without Uncle Lloyd.
I am horror author T. Fox Dunham.
And I am author and filmmaker Phil Thomas.
And we are going to save Halloween 2020.
This Halloween, our community has changed due to the danger of COVID-19.
We must make sacrifices to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and each other, especially the senior and vulnerable members of our community.
But this doesn't mean we cancel Halloween. In fact, we need to celebrate Halloween as a distraction, an expression of our fears, to give ourselves and our children a sense of normalcy.
So this Halloween, we ask that you find alternatives to trick-or-treating, respect social distancing at public events, wear masks below masks, and wash your hands.
Serial killers and monsters, please maintain a distance of 6 feet when chasing happy teenagers at campgrounds or in abandoned factories.
And don't give up. Find new ways of performing beloved traditions like trick-or-treating on Skype, or enjoying your favorite horror films with friends through an online watching party, or when summoning demonic spirits, make sure the hell dimension you are summoning from has observed COVID-19 prevention guidelines, such as social distancing during cult ceremonies.
This is
Bach, and we wish you a safe and non-contagious Halloween. And we're back with episode 149, Zombie Love, for Halloween, with Daniel Kraus. Now, Daniel is an extraordinary author who's done some remarkable things with his career, and we've been speaking to extraordinary authors for the past, the last several episodes going to the summer. We've had some wonderful authors to talk to. Now, Daniel Kraus is a New York Times best-selling author. He co-authored The Shape of Water with Guillermo del Toro, based on the same idea the two created for the Oscar-winning film. Also with Del Toro, Kraus co-authored Troll Hunters, which was adapted into an Emmy-winning Netflix series. Kraus, The Death and Life of Zubelund Finch, was named one of Entertainment Weekly's top 100 books of the year, and he has won 2 Odyssey Awards for both Rotters and Scholar, and he has been a Library Guild selection. He also Best Fiction for Young Adults and a Bram Stoker finalist, and more.
Yes, and coming soon is The Living Dead, a posthumous collaboration with legendary filmmaker George Romero. Kraus's work has been translated into over 25 languages. He lives with his wife in Chicago. Visit him at danielkraus.com. It's great to have you on the show, Daniel.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So when we talk to authors, we like to share with our audience their journey. How did your writing career begin?
Well, it began very, very early. I mean, I was writing stories, I don't know, first, second grade. I mean, I started really with monster drawings. I had a friend who lived in my little neighborhood in Iowa, and we would draw monsters and put them in the folder in these folders that we had. I think they were probably divided into good monsters and bad monsters, and really the writing grew out of that. Like, we wanted something for the monsters to do, essentially. So we'd write these, silly kind of Godzilla versus Mothra type stories. And then I just kept doing that and, growing, and eventually stopped writing about monsters and started writing about actual human beings. And then by the time I was in middle school and certainly high school, I was writing novel length manuscripts.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
And he did it with a friend. That's the best part. When you have a best friend and you both share a love and an interest like that. Like, my friend John and I both found Dungeons & Dragons together when we were, 13, 14 years old. And in fact, tonight, all these years, decades later, I'll be joining them at 7 p.m. to DM a game that we've been doing. We started because of COVID. Since we can't really leave the house, right, and our day trips are done. So we've played once a week now for 6 weeks, and it's been incredible, especially online.
Yeah. That's incredible.
For whatever reason, I didn't know anyone who played Dungeons & Dragons. That wasn't a facet of my childhood. But I think had it been, that might have been something that might have taken the place of this. But since it didn't exist, we sort of wrote our own.
That's actually what it reminded me of, was my friend John and I. So, all right, so Mr. Kraus, Daniel, We talk about an author's works, and we talk about their writing style and creative process, and we sort of mix it up for our audience. We have an audience of horror levels, paranormal fans, and authors and creators. So, jumping in, out of all the elements of writing fiction, character, plot, dialogue, what's the element that was hardest for you to write, and how are you working to improve that?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the comment that I get from my editors most often is, what is so-and-so feeling here? So I think sometimes I'm a little stingy with the inner emotions of the characters. I tend to sort of bury it a little bit, or think it's coming through and maybe it's not. So I think it's an ongoing struggle for me, I think, to open up a character. I think in the same way that I'm not a very emotional person, I tend to make my characters not very outwardly emotional anyway. Finding a way into that, I think, is a challenge.
So very much a Hemingway kind of, not very much internalization in your work kind of author.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that I'm doing that, but apparently I'm not doing it enough, or I'm not doing it in as upfront a way. Like, I'm doing it in a way that's a little too subtle.
How has your writing evolved as you've grown older and more successful?
I rely less on what I wouldn't have called gimmicks back when I started, but now I can kind of see, certain patterns in dialogue and certain stylizations that were definitely served their purpose and were kind of cool, but I try to be a little more naturalistic now, especially in my dialogue. I used to have this sort of heightened, it was realistic, but a little juiced up. And I don't think that's uncommon. I think writers, as they progress their careers, do tend to start to realize that the splashiness with which they try to write every sentence is, you can try too hard and it can get in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen it with a couple new authors that I've read. You can, the flowery dialogue and stuff. And I've noticed in myself, I used to do that too, and I kind of put a plateau on that now.
Dialogue is probably the number one answer we hear to that. A lot of people have trouble diversifying it from their own voice and their own prose, and that's something I always do a dialogue read when I edit. I go back over and make sure that it's in character voice. Now, going over your work and looking over at some of the wonderful books and in the various styles that you've created, They Throw Us Away is a new book coming out in September from Macmillan, and it looks like it's entirely different from your other book. I'll read the synopsis. Buddy wakes up in a garbage dump filled with a certain awareness. He's a teddy bear. He spent time at a store, and he is meant for the loving arms of a child. Now he knows one more thing. Something has gone terribly wrong. So this is different from the other books that I've looked over for you. So why did you decide to write this sort of Velveteen Rabbit story? And how did writing it differ from your other books?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is different. It's for a younger age than I've ever written for. I've written adult and young adult, but I haven't really written younger than that. So this is what you call a middle grade book. But like all my stuff, it's written in a way that I think adults will like too. Even this one. Velveteen Rabbit is a good comparison. This is far darker than that. I don't know that there's ever been a teddy bear story quite as dark as this one. But, one of my major influences as a writer was Watership Down. I read that in, I don't know, maybe early high school, late middle school, somewhere in there. And it made a huge impact on me. And one of the things I loved about it, that blew me away about it, was that it was this incredibly dark, exciting, kind of Lord of the Rings style epic journey adventure. But it was all done with bunny rabbits. And I loved that you could take on something so serious with something so frivolous. And in fact, it made it even all the more affecting. So this is pretty upfront that this is my homage to Watership Down. Instead of bunny rabbits, I've got teddy bears, which are extremely vulnerable objects and they've come to life, and they have all been thrown away, and they don't know why. And so they take this 3-book journey from the garbage dump back into the city. It's a very urban book, and they are out to figure out what they did wrong, why they got thrown away.
I love that.
I like to think that all stories of childhood toys is the story of betrayal. It is an abandonment. I still have toys that I was a kid that I feel like if they sit in a closet or something, like I've abandoned them and hurt them, and they're all sitting on the dresser currently watching me.
It's like the short story I did, Teddy Bear Kill Kill. It's for an upcoming anthology where the nuclear explosion, all the stuffed animals in town come to life, and they start attacking the townspeople and killing them, and the survivors turn into like these zombie-like people who remind me of that. And one of them's a teddy bear.
What anthology was that again? Was that
Tales of Al Noir? Isn't out yet.
Okay, so that's Mark Slade.
Right.
Okay, yeah, helping out Mark there. Very cool.
Daniel, I picked up. Well, I didn't pick it up. Yeah, I ordered it yesterday. I was looking at your books, and I'm a Halloween fanatic, and I ordered Blood Sugar because I just loved that premise. It just sounded right up my alley. So it should be coming. I should have it hopefully by tomorrow.
Yeah. Blood Sugar is another one that sticks out. It's very different stylistically than anything else I've done. It's also the shortest by far. It's a tiny little dagger, that book.
Yeah, I just love that premise where they're going to poison the children's Halloween candy. I was like, wow.
Yeah, Blood Sugar is one of my 2 out of, I think I've been 12 books maybe, and it's one of my 2 favorites. I really, really like it, and it's based on the urban legend of someone poisoning Halloween candy.
And it's like that craze back in the 80s when all the parents were taking their kids' candy to have it x-rayed on Halloween. Mm-hmm. And I remember I grew up as a kid in the 80s, and I remember going to the police station with my mom and having my bag of candy going under an x-ray conveyor belt.
Wow.
Before I could touch any of it. Yeah.
I've actually never heard of that. I only know of parents themselves looking at the candy. I've never heard of a conveyor belt.
Yeah, it was an X-ray machine that you actually take it to the police station. You would X-ray your candy for like razor blades and things like that. It was really bizarre, and I wasn't allowed to touch the candy. I couldn't eat anything until this X-ray. This X-ray told me it was fine.
Yeah, I guess my parents didn't love me as much. Just say, oh well, if he gets a razor, oh well, he can learn the hardships of life sooner or later.
It'll build character. Yeah. Maybe
one day he'll be a horror writer, and this will stand out in his stories. We pause our interview with Daniel Kraus for David Walton to read an excerpt from his new book, The Living Dead, on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Parax Radio, Friday nights at 9 p.m. This is episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween. We'll be right back with Daniel Kraus.
Patterns by Daniel Kraus. Read by David Walton. It was Navy cliché that a carrier's flight deck in motion operated like a ballroom dance. On crystalline mornings, when the sun at the stern made crinkled red foil of ocean swells and turned both runways into long, blinding bars of gold, the deck became a stage. Groups of dancers entered left or right or centre, attired in colours appreciable from the cheap seats. Royal blue for aircraft handlers and drivers, blood red for ordnance and crash crews, canary yellow for plane directors, and so on. Their moves were as precise as a bourrée or a fouette, the dexterous setting of catapults, the nimble fastening of tow bars, the LSO's hand signals as graceful as any port de bras. It was an elite company. A misstep on this stage ended not a corps de ballet career, but a human life. Nishimura saw not one element awry, or even 2. Below were 24 sailors who did not belong, spreading across the rain-roiled deck without heed of safety protocols. The intrusion was as unthinkable as theatre-goers climbing the stage. One man was within several feet of an EA-18G Growler, about to take off. Nishimura held his breath as the growler was shot from Catapult 1. It sliced through the rain and silently, to all of those watching, lopped off the man's head with the end of its 44-foot wingspan. It was the single worst thing Nishimura had ever seen. A beheading aboard USS Olympia. Everyone in the world would know about it in hours. It might take slightly longer for one of the internet's death sites to mystically acquire security video. The 6 months of Big Mama's last deployment, if not her entire honourable career, would be a footnote to this accident. Nishimura saw the black jet of blood and the head's casual volleyball roll. Navy soldiers were not given to gasping, but every person on the nav bridge drew in a screech of air. "Halloween!" Lang sputtered. "Master Chief, could it be Halloween?" Nishimura's hope surged as if by injection. He knew what Lang meant. Halloween was 7 days off, making this the right time for pranks. Petty officers showing up for inspection dressed as Power Rangers. XO Pete broadcasting in his soberest voice the news of a sea monster attack, all hands on deck. But those pranks were okayed by Captain Page. Those pranks were safe. Sending sailors onto a working flight deck meant certain death. Catapult 2 shot a C-2A Greyhound into the sky, the force of its jets tumbling an intruder 100 feet onto elevator number 2. The man wore neither float coat or cranial. He ought to be down for the count. Instead, he got up, hobbling, one leg contorted sideways at the knee. His white uniform was raised by an asphalt streak that had split open his shirt as well as the flesh beneath it. He walked back onto the deck. "It's exactly what I said," Henstrong cried, adding a hasty, "Sir, it has to be a biologic agent. That's why we need to button up. What if the agent gets up here, sir?" Deck operations were jolting to screeching, smoking halts. It was shocking how quickly training fell apart. Signalmen abandoned their usual battery of signals to frantically flap their arms at cued pilots. Others rushed right at the trespassing sailors, waving them towards the superstructure. A Super Hornet unchained from the deck had been abandoned, and Nishimura watched it roll starboard. 66,000 pounds of lurking catastrophe. "Who should we call, sir?" Lang asked. "Should I look for the OOD again, Master Chief?" Legg asked. Any sailor stationed on the island grew used to seeing patterns indiscernible at ground level. The port and starboard line of parked jets looked like the rating stripes of an officer first class. The spray hosing of jet blast deflector troughs, when done by 2 sailors in tandem, created butterfly wings when the sun caught the oily plumes. At first, the deck intruders seemed incapable of method or sequence. Patterns, however, were emerging. When an intruder came up against a jet, refueling equipment, or a support vehicle, their paths changed. They redirected towards the nearest sailor, no matter who they'd been pursuing. Nishimura saw that the group had formed a perfect oval around the deck, as if in psychic agreement. A woman in a khaki service uniform bit off a sailor's fingers. Nishimura saw blood fire into the woman's face, who lapped at it, a kid drinking from a backyard hose. Like that, Nishimura quit thinking of them as intruders. They were what Chuck Corso warned them about. They were ghouls. And somehow, against every odd, they'd accomplished what no enemy in history had done: infiltrated an American aircraft carrier, the military's most protected asset. "Down to 5 knots. Hard left rudder," Nishimura ordered. "The OOD," Legg said weakly. I have the deck, Quartermaster, Nishimura said. 5 knots, left full rudder. Head into a circling pattern. Alert the strike group. Dimly, darkly, Nishimura recalled that Hickenlooper had been circling all morning. Hello folks, I've uploaded a compilation of 10 songs with a ghostly theme that have been specifically recorded for various episodes of What Are You Afraid Of podcast.com. Go to Bandcamp and search for Brendan Shawland. The album is called The Ghostly Brendan Shawland. You can listen to them for free or download them for a modest fee as a complete album or as individual songs. Thank you.
Mercy, a new horror medical thriller from author T. Fox Dunham, published by Bloodbound Books. Based on the author's horrific battle with a rare form of lymphoma that involved intense chemotherapy and radiation, Fox turns the horror of his experience into terror on the page.
William Saint is dying of cancer. On most days, death seems like a humane alternative to the treatment. Stricken with fever, William is rushed to Mercy, notorious as a place to send the sickest of the poor and uninsured to be forgotten, and finds the hospital in even worse condition than his previous visit. The grounds are unkempt, the foundation is cracking, and like the wild mushrooms sprouting from the fissures of decay around it, something is growing inside the hospital. Something dark.
Fangoria gives Mercy 3.5 out of 4 skulls. Dunham has channeled his many brushes with the other side into the exquisitely rendered, lyrical, supernatural hospital thriller Mercy.
It's feeding on the sickness and sustaining itself on the staff, changing them, and now it wants Willie.
Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores everywhere in both print and digital versions.
Life is an addiction.
Let go. Let it all burn.
We're back. Episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween. We're talking with Daniel Kraus, an extraordinary author who's just done such powerful stories that so many of them have made it into other media forms, and he's very much living the dream. And Mr. Grady Hendrix said to ask you about Rotters. He said he loves Rotters. He says to say hi, and hopefully I'll get a chance to read Rotters in the next month.
Hello, Grady.
So The Living Dead is a new novel, which coming out in August, and you co-wrote it with the great George Romero. George passed away in 2017, and your work has been called a posthumous collaboration. How did you get involved with this project?
Well, it was basically about a month after George died. His wife and his manager started to go through some of his unfinished projects. You know, they're basically looking at his laptop saying, well, what was he in the middle of? And one project that he had been working on and off for a good decade or so was giant epic zombie novel that is kind of everything he wasn't allowed to do in the movies. And that can be taken 2 ways. It can be taken in the way that the sense of scope. He wanted to do things that he would never have the budget for in movies, but also in the opposite direction. He really, when it came to literature, and he didn't write a lot of prose, but I read all that he did write. He was very interested in the interior thoughts and character development that you could only get in novels. They didn't want this kind of final word on zombies to slip away. So they, I guess, looked for someone who might be a good fit to write it. George's manager knew of me, knew that I was a huge Romero fanatic and had been since I was a very young child. 5 or 6 years old is when I started watching Night of the Living Dead. So I was very young. And I was a real student of Romero, not just his zombie stuff, but all of his films. I was a real acolyte of his. And I had done a couple other collaborations just before that with Guillermo del Toro. I was somebody who knew how to collaborate successfully.
In California, medical examiners Luis and Charlene discover a dead man who won't stay dead. It spreads quickly. In a Midwestern trailer park rear, a black teenager and Fadi, a Muslim immigrant, battle newly risen friends and family. We think we know how this story ends. We are wrong. This sounds incredible. So I can imagine writing it must have been a sacred and careful duty, and you wanted to preserve as much of George's vision while writing a compelling story. What was the process like writing this book?
It was really different. It was, before I wrote a word, I did months of research. And this obviously began with just watching all of his movies again and taking notes. Again, not just his zombie movies. I was really after his entire worldview and sort of artistic inclinations. So watched all the movies, probably watched them again with commentary tracks, read and listened to every interview I could possibly find. Did a very crucial long interview with his wife. I went up to Toronto and just learned about his viewpoints on things, his politics, the things he loved and the things he hated. And not most important of all, but certainly critically, the art that he really loved. I wanted to figure out what movies, what music, etc., that he really returned to again and again, and which inspired his own work, with the idea that I could study those works of art too, and then become inspired by the things that inspired him. And that was an unusual step to take, but it really worked. Once I watched these things that he loved enough, if we're talking about movies, I could start to find the things in them that I believe echoed things in his work. And then I could use those myself, and I could build this kind of scaffolding over the missing pieces of the book. And there were plenty of those that I had to deal with. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure, and no one was applying that pressure really more than I was, because I was such a fan of his and considered his work really, really important, not just to me, but important to the genre. And when you're talking about something like Night of the Living Dead, beyond the genre, it's important to independent film, period. Yeah, I took it very seriously, spent months on that, worked probably months more on the outline, because this book was coming together in such a strange way that it really wasn't something I could make up as I went along. There were too many patches. He had written this part, but not this part. And then he had written this part over here, but not the part before it. And so it was a real puzzle piece. And then during the process of writing, there were a couple times when more of his work was discovered that hadn't been in the initial manuscript pages. So those were then sent to me, and I had to figure out how to work those in, because they would come, I'm hundreds of pages into the book at this point. And then I'd get these notes on where he was going with some of the plot. So it would cause me to completely have to rethink things. So in a weird way, it was kind of like he was out there sending me new material, just like a regular co-author.
There have been many different interpretations of the zombie. I mean, the fast, the slow, cannibal, intelligent, chemical, undead. What do you believe is the quintessential zombie, and why?
Careful now, Daniel. There's a lot of controversy on this one.
Well, I mean, it's very easy for me to answer. I'm a Romero through and through, so I'm going to go with the slow-moving corpse-like zombies. Romero obviously famously did not understand why zombies would ever have the ability to run. It made no sense to me that zombies would ever be after brains, because they wouldn't bother to go through the skull, which is pretty difficult to breach when you have this entire soft body to feast on. So I'm with him. His idea was really to just keep it simple. He wanted the zombies to be as straightforward and as simple as possible. And I think that's partly because he didn't want to imbue them with any supernatural abilities. He was very adamant, and in this book as well, adamant that there be no explanation for no firm explanation how the zombie plague started. In that way you would have more sympathy for them, because they're a lot like normal people in a way, and his sympathies were always really with the zombies and not the people.
So Phil and Daniel, out of George Romero's works, out of all his movies, what is your favorite, Phil?
I would have to say the original Night of the Living Dead. I've seen it about 100 times. I also really like Dawn of the Dead, but that's a close second. But the original, I would say original Night of the Living Dead, because I mean that's the OG.
The OG. How about you, Daniel?
I'm going to give you 3 different variations on my answer.
Okay.
I have to almost set Night of the Living Dead aside. It's something I've seen so many times and know every second of, that it's almost not like a movie to me anymore. It's more like an album that I've listened to my whole life. I can't. It's too emotionally associated with my entire sense of being, so I can't even reliably assess it anymore. So in a way, that's my favorite. But putting that aside, I sort of have two favorites. My favorite of his zombie movies is Day of the Dead. Mm-hmm. First time I ever saw it, it has, which again wasn't when I was 5 or 6, but was probably, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade. Still fairly young. It has really affected me and haunted me. And that's where you really get the sense, if you haven't gotten it already, that the people are the bad guys and the zombies are the sort of rising underclass. Aside from the zombie films, I mean, I'd go with Day of the Dead. It's fun, and Creepshow is so much fun. But George's favorite movie of his was Martin. And it's really easy to see why. Martin is so good, and it's a real crime that it's not really available in the States right now.
I'm probably gonna freak you both out, but I gotta say my favorite, the one that I can't go Halloween without, has to be the more recent Diary of the Dead. I think Diary, which was filmed from the point of view of students who were caught up in the modern world, using cameras to distract themselves in the way that media is changing our perspective and perception of the world. I really think Diary of the Dead is my favorite. And of course, they drive through Lancaster. There's a plain person, I've learned that you call a person who's Amish or you call them plain. We just moved to Lancaster.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we just moved to Lancaster a few months ago, and Scene in the Barn with the Winnebago, and he sticks a scythe through his head. But I just think that was the best zombie movie, and it was the most potent that George had to say.
I love hearing that, because I don't hear it very often, and I think Diary of the Dead is a great film.
For our writers listening, what should our writers be doing to achieve your level of success?
It kind of goes against common thinking these days, but I always felt that not sharing my work too much helped me become a better writer. I think today there's a big push that when you're a young writer, you should always be sharing your stories. And I know there's online communities where you can get feedback. And I think there's probably a lot of good sides to that. But I also think when you're getting a lot of feedback, you're going to react to that feedback, and you might end up in a sort of a safe zone somewhere in the middle where everyone can kind of agree that it's good. I think that's a recipe for potential sameness. I got a lot out of writing all my books throughout middle school and high school and beyond, and never showing them to anyone. They weren't for anyone else. I never had the urge to.
Now, my wife is a bit, she's well known in the horror community, especially by members of the HWA when I do events here in Philadelphia, and they're sort of frightened of her a bit, and she's just one of those people. And when she heard we were getting you on the show, she said, okay, he wrote The Shape of Water, like he co-wrote it, honey. Could you ask him why he had such a bad ending where the monster kills the guy? So basically, to finally bring some peace to my troubled home, and this is for my wife, in The Shape of Water, the sea creature is made out to be more evolved than destructive humans. So why in the end did he succumb to base instincts and kill the guy?
It's a really fair question. I think the book, if you read the book, it will give you a little bit better insight, because the book goes into the perspective of the creature. And you get, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's sort of a spoiler. There is an animal sense. Just because animals, I would argue that animals in some way are superiors. They are morally superior. How could they not be? They don't hate, kill like we do. They don't hate and kill out of anger. But even in this peaceful, very natural world of animals, there is killing, and there are reasons for that. So I will leave it at that. But it is a great thought that I definitely considered, and not many people pick up on. So it's a really smart question.
I'll see if she's okay with that. But the next time we're all at a convention together, and 10 years from now or something, I go down to World Horror Con a few times, and she might be there, and she might have some more questions for you. And Daniel, it has been incredible speaking to you, quite insightful. Thank you so much for coming on episode 149, Zombie Leper Halloween.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Wake up and take cover. Hurry about in your slumber. It's the dawn of the dead now. Hell is up and upon us. Can't trust no one. Your father or even mother, sisters or brothers, aunties, nephew, nieces or uncles, not even lovers, friends, associates or co-workers, all out to hurt you. Only thought on their mind is murder. Gotta try to survive in these times of tribulation. Prophesy within lines of biblical publication. It's the time of the end as nation rise against nation, hasten up against Asian, doctors all against patients. But now it doesn't matter the health or race you're in, cause the dead's taking over the people in place. Live men, women and children, it's survival of the fittest. How can it be survival when the dead is trying to kill us? Sounds like a contradiction depicting this here horrific scene. So I gotta be equipped to spit hits like a lyric machine. Wet up a zombie demon with hollow tips like a flash of heat. Let's make them squeamish and rush them like a blitzkrieg. Quick, you wanna mistreat this? I'll leave you anemic. Leave them heated, a steaming pile of obese shit. That's the fertilizer remote you've been reduced to. Your stool, fecal matter, or just plain old doo-doo. Walking around stank, brain is decaying. Authentically found blank, bank, places you straying. Wandering souls with no control of your functions. Emotions and creatures with bottomless pits for stomachs. What's this? Trap, I ain't giving them just yet. Grab strap, then bust quick shit. Ain't fucking with Dipset, but I create a little gap dip and then I'm set. Catch me if you can, like Tom and Leonardo. I lead and I follow, and we'll both be seeing tomorrow, motherfucker. Running, pumping the shotgun into bad guys, but they rise, so we're dumping and running, but can't hide, cause they smell hot. Our flesh is what they dine on. Our lives have no prize MasterCard can buy, but now a shotgun, 1045. A revolver set, 959. A crossbow, 21079. A pair of New Balance running shoes, 89. 75 for a bulletproof raid vest. To save your chest, get two, you can pay less. $10 if you wanna beat 'em with vice grips, but your eye, skin, and life damn right's priceless. That's right, bitch. I ain't dying without a fight. From my cold dead fingers, you'll be primed the mic. This device that'll strike.
We are back on episode 149. Zombie Love for Halloween.
We are back.
We are back.
Zombie Love for Halloween.
We gotta get the zombie love, and I think zombies are probably my favorite part of Halloween. Well, maybe hauntings too, but the majority of films that I will be watching will be zombie films.
Nice.
Ever since I was a kid.
I like a collection of, I like the slashers, I like the zombies, I like the paranormal.
Yeah.
I like everything. A little mix of everything.
Right.
Like, what is your stance on slashers? Do you like them, or they at the bottom of your barrel, or how? I know you really like zombies. I know that for a fact.
Slasher.
What is your stance on slashers?
A slasher film is more of a literary horror movie. It has no well, it can have a supernatural element, of course. I actually get a little bored with them.
Okay, all right.
You know, sorry, Phil. I don't mean to be
that's fine.
sacrilege, but I just it depends on the film. If it's I've watched the Friday the 13th, but Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger was essentially the Nightmare on Elm Street series was a slasher set, but what really was their supernatural qualities, that really got me.
Freddy is dead.
Yeah.
He's not a living, breathing, stalking killer.
Right.
He has the power to invade your dreams, and that's what makes him really scary.
Right.
And Jason Friday the 13th obviously is, I think he's got some supernatural abilities too.
Resurrection.
Because he can be resurrected, and he's practically impossible to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Michael Myers.
So it was cool speaking to Daniel Kraus. Now, you just read one of his books, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I read Blood Sugar.
Okay.
Yeah, very good book.
How was it? What was it about?
I really liked it. From the dark imagination of best-selling novelist Daniel Kraus, co-author of Guillermo del Toro, The Shape of Water, comes a Halloween crime story that's like nothing you ever read before. In a ruined house at the end of Yellow Street, an angry outcast hatches a scheme to take revenge for all the wrongs he has suffered. With the help of 3 alienated kids, he plans to hide razor blades, poison, and broken glass in Halloween candy, maiming or killing dozens of innocent children. But as the clock ticks closer to sundown, will one of his helpers, an innocent himself, in his own streetwise way, carry out or defeat the plan? Ooh,
wow. Well, that sounds cool. So you enjoyed the book?
I did. I really did. And how's your baking coming along? Have you been making some fall delectables?
I am planning on doing some of my pumpkin scones and pumpkin cookies with chocolate chips.
And that sounds good.
Hopefully we'll get up to a local orchard here, pick some apples ourselves, and I was thinking about making like an apple pie also.
Oh, nice. You should definitely do that.
But this is episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween, because Halloween is coming in 2020. Okay, so, Phil, before we go, let me ask you a question. A zombie question, a zombie survey. If you were a zombie, what kind of zombie would you be? And how would you kill and eat your prey?
I want to be one of those fast zombies that can just run like super fast, like Carlos.
Like Carlos, okay. So
I don't know if half our audience knows who that is, but
I'll find a link.
Remember him? Yeah.
No, I don't.
You don't remember him?
No.
One of those ones that can just like outrun pretty much anybody.
Okay. The fast zombie. So maybe your body's still intact for the first 10 days.
And how would I kill them? I think. How would I kill them? Well, I'm guessing if I can run that fast, I can probably leap pretty far. So maybe a leap kill, a leap, tackle them to the ground, and just go to town.
So fast zombie, tackle kill.
Fast leaping tackle kill zombie. Yep.
Fast leaping zombie kill. Okay, awesome. Yep. I've been thinking about this. And what kind of zombie would I be? I think I would be the docile zombie.
Okay.
The one who doesn't attack you.
The one that doesn't attack you?
Yet. I'd be biding my time.
Oh, okay.
Slowly rotting. Passive. Looks like I'm not all the way there. Until you start letting your guard down around me. Wondering if there's a new kind of zombie, if our brains begin to rot and we no longer have any sort of consciousness or recognition of the world around us, so that you start sort of taking me for granted. I get a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer, and then supper time.
Ooh, supper time. So you'll just kind of hang out in the corner.
Yeah.
And just kind of sit there and just survey.
Like the zombie that you don't want to waste your limited ammunition on.
Right. Oh, he's already gone. He's just laying there. He's just sitting there.
Right.
Kind of thing. Now, would you be like looking at them? Like, would you like?
Yeah, almost with
acknowledge.
a wistful.
Would you allow them to acknowledge that you're watching them, or
almost with a wistful kind of like, oh, look at that zombie fox in the field. He has a faint memory of what it was to be human, and he looks upon us with envy and sadness. Let's pity him. Let's make him a pet.
Put like a leash on you, like
right, and then one day I just snap and turn and start eating them, and I do it again and again.
I like that. So gain the trust and turn.
Right. So I asked some people on Facebook what kind of zombie they would be. Well, first, Matthew J. Bappo, he said that he'd rely on his stunning good looks and outgoing personality. He says he's currently disabled. Hope you do better, Matt. But you'd see him and think, oh, this poor guy needs my help. So, like, he's pretending to be a wounded living person. And then he'd spring on you and gnaw your neck.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that.
These are his words. You'd get pissed off and be like, dude, WTF? He'd shrug his shoulders and be like, rawr. And then you'd sigh and be like, okay, zombie Matt, I'll find you some brains. And then he would adopt me like a pet, so he wants to do it too.
Nice. I like that. I would just spring and go rawr.
And then you'd read his book, A Handyman's Guide to Paranormal Events, and have to remodel your house, maybe zombie-proof it, in exchange for brains. So he's the zombie handyman.
Ooh, okay.
The zombie contractor.
Like that. That's cool. I like that. Nice. Zombie. Nothing wrong with that. Zombie contractor.
I asked Anthony Riviera, our good friend Big Tony Riviera, and he said, I would be a zombie that kills and destroys all other zombies, ultimately wiping out my race, because I hate zombies. That's what he said.
So he's going to turn on his own.
He's going to turn on his own because he doesn't like zombies. He's a self-hating zombie.
Okay, so he's a self-hating zombie.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. And that's an interesting twist there.
Always cranky Tony.
So, I mean, it makes sense, though, because if you wipe out all of your own kind, then there's more brains for him.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. So he's eliminating the competition.
Right. There you go.
I like that. That's very
taking
cool.
them out.
I asked D. Alexander Ward. He said, and I love this, I would be a jack-in-the-box zombie. Just an undead head attached to a spring in a box. Curious passerbys would open this said box, and boing! Snack time!
That's creative. I like that.
But I wanted to mention...
I want to change mine to the Jack-in-the-Box.
We'll have a whole fleet of them. Jack-in-the-Box zombies. But I wanted to mention, Alexander Ward is doing another Noir at the Bar. It's going to be a Halloween edition, online, with some great authors who will be reading their work. Time to get your creep on. Join the Richmond City Writers for a special Halloween-themed Noir at the Bar. They'll be reading some dark tales, taking a walk on the horror side, not straying too far from the usual murder and mayhem you'd come to expect from them. So pour yourself a witch's brew and join them online for this special event. There'll be authors like D. Alexander Ward, Marietta Mills, Julia Breaux, and the amazing S.A. Crosby, who's been very successful with his recent book.
Nice.
That
sounds like a good time.
I'm going to put up a link to that at our website at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com, where you can find all of our previous episodes, the new archive of ghost stories. I've organized them by subject. So like there's a haunted house subject, a spooky animal, a bizarre encounter, or like family member coming back to wish you love or give you a greeting. They're all over at the website with new setup at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com, and I'll be adding more as the month goes on.
Wonderful.
This has been a fun episode. Did you enjoy yourself, Phil?
Oh, I absolutely did. Yeah, and Daniel Kraus is such a wonderful guest.
Yeah, potent stuff. Really great guy. And, I just love that thing with The Shape of Water, where my wife wanted to know about... I think we took him off guard.
Yeah, you kind of did. I don't think he was expecting that question at all.
Yeah, well, the fans are the people you have to answer to.
Right.
And I also had a question. Right. This has been a cool episode 149, Zombie Love for Halloween. That song we played back there was Dawn of the Dead by Peter Aldrich, featuring John Harmon and David Williams, and it's Creative Commons, so we can play it, which is cool. So we're going to close our episode with short story that I did a few years ago when I was playing World of Warcraft.
Okay.
And I had built a pretty strong guild there, and I was writing zombie fiction for various publications. And I thought to myself, you know what? We're such a good guild in raids that I think if we got together in real life, we could use that same system of leadership and teamwork to survive a zombie apocalypse. So this is and I changed the name, how my Battlecraft guild survived a zombie apocalypse. And if you're a gamer out there, you'll really enjoy this one. This is read by David Walton. Well, Phil, it's been a great episode. Zombie Love for Halloween. We had author Daniel Kraus, and we'll be back with episode 150 as we put out a couple of extra episodes this October as we count down to October 2020. This is T. Fox Dunham.
And this is Phil Thomas.
How Our Battlecraft Guild Survived the Zombie Apocalypse. A short fiction written by T. Fox Dunham. Read by David Walton. I miss aspects of the old world. Electricity, clear highways, playing Realm of Battlecraft online every night after work. After our guild fled the city, we suffered major game withdrawal. By the second week, Philly reeked of rancid roadkill, 7 days in the sun and all sticky. The fact that most of the population had been eaten or infected with the Helsinki 221 virus made residency undesirable. At least I got to play Battlecraft every day for a while. When the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, declared a national emergency and the military imposed martial law, I enjoyed some of the best weeks of my life. I had a crate of ramen in the closet and enough bottled water to last, but I couldn't get a big gulp since 7-Eleven and Cedar Avenue had turned into a war zone. Dude, it was a dream. My work in the IT department at Moose Shoes killed my brain cells. Every day, 9 to 6. The bus got me home to my building by 7, and I'd only have a couple of hours to play. My gaming guild, the DPS Badasses, raided on Thursday nights, but I always had to log off by 11, usually missing the last raid boss. I'd started a shaman, planning to raid heal, but I had no time to level it. For 20 straight days we played Battlecraft, riding out the zombie plague until things returned to normal. They always did, right? The guild hung out on voice chat and had group discussions on the best ways to secure our homes. Half of the guild members were ex-military, and we'd all been planning for the upcoming zombie war for years, talking about our fantasies, even role-playing them out with dice. We were prepared. We secured our doors, made sure we had points of exit, like my fire escape down from the 6th floor of my building. We used headphones and just laid low while the zombie army conquered the streets. Eventually the US military would take the country back and things would go back to normal. That's usually how the movies ended. I didn't want it to end. I capped my shaman's level. I didn't think I'd have so much fun raid healing, but I lived a lot longer in game than playing a melee, especially during boss fights. By the second week, the power fluctuated. Most internet search engines started coming up, website not found, but the game stayed live. Power's going to stay on for maybe a couple more days, Grimstalk Killer 5 said over voice chat. After that, it's not coming back. Stone Age. We've got nuclear power, Dead Guy grumbled at his brother. The army will keep it running. The army's wiped out or hiding in bunkers, Grimstalk Killer 5 snapped back. Be right back, guys, I said. I had to go stuff wet rags under my door to keep the smoke out. The guild leaders all lived in Philly. We used to roleplay at Comic Zen. The group kept together when we started playing online games. It's only a matter of TikToks till the conflagration spreads, Foxy said. Still, gentlemen, ever read Albert Camus' The Plague? Voice chat silenced. Fox sighed. Quick Fox version then, Fox said. If you can't change when life changes, you die. If we're not burned to death, the zombies are going to start massing into the buildings, searching for food. We have a small window here. Fellow guild members, loyal friends and brother warriors, it's time to make our exodus. Dude, can you arrange transportation? Dead Guy, do you still have any weapons after your discharge? I've been plating my Dodge truck with aluminum sheets, the dude said. I welded spikes on the front hood. Lansdale's not too bad yet, so I could get some extra gas. We could do this. I've got an M1 rifle, some handguns and ammo, Grimstalk Killer 5 said. Here's the plan, Fox said, the confidence in his voice putting me at ease. Dude, get your truck built. Selena Shield and I live in Lansdale, so he can grab us first. Vampire 143, we'll get you next since you can leap off your fire escape. Pack up what medical supplies you have from the paramedic training course you took. What's the zombie situation in your street? I took off my headphones, looked down through the living room window. A couple of bodies staggered about, but we could avoid those. I reported. I'm not going, Dead Guy said. I'm going down with Battlecraft. I respect your decision, Dead Guy, I said. You want to die how you lived, glued to your mouse, casting firebolts from your warlock. I salute you. The dude drove the back alleys, banging up his truck at times. He ploughed into the few bodies, running them through with his spikes. A woman missing both arms dangled off one of the spikes, impaled through her chest. I leapt from the fire escape ladder and landed in the back of the truck. Fox sat up in the front wearing his tan fedora hat. Selena Shield squeezed in the middle. She held a table leg, bloody after being used as an improvised club. Good to have you, Vampire 143, Fox said, extending his hand through the cabin's back window. We ploughed through South Philly, stopped in front of Warlock Lady's house. Bodies surrounded it. He tossed us the bag of guns, then jumped off his roof and hit the side of the truck, snapping his leg. He tumbled into the back. "Move your ass!" Grimstalk Killer 5 yelled, holding his leg. The dude sped us out of there just as bodies mobbed the truck. Dead Guy saluted us through his bedroom window. We returned the salute to our comrade, who had honoured the guild with his life. He sat back down at the PC and resumed questing. We rode in silence through the city. I checked Grimstalk Killer 5's leg and took out a brace from my bag. Some bandages. I would have been a paramedic, but I washed out of the course. The sight of blood turned my stomach. "This is going to hurt," I told him. I snapped the bone in place. I also gave Selena Shield some rubbing alcohol and bandages for a bleeding gash on the dude's arm. The wound turned black. Grimstalk Killer 5 handed Fox 2 daggers with ornate handles. Fox grinned when he accepted them. The weapons of a rogue, his class in the game. We no longer used our given names. That world had died and reanimated. We had to leave it behind to survive, just like the book Fox had mentioned. I planned to read it. I had plenty of time to read now. We barreled through the streets, the bodies thickening, amassing round the truck. We had to get out of Philly. "Walt Whitman Bridge," Fox said. We followed our lead. Looking at his calculating eyes, I could see how he'd earned his cunning moniker. Once we hit I-95, abandoned cars sealed the way. The dude navigated the shoulder, though he lost a headlight in a tight pass. We had to slow down. Grimstalk Killer 5 shot the zombies that got too close to the truck. A parade of bodies surged behind us, snowballing as we got closer to the bridge. Ahead, I could see the blue scaffolding of the bridge over the Delaware River, leading to safety in New Jersey, though we'd still have to get out of Camden and into the country. Over the radio, we'd heard tell of a safe zone in Ocean City, New Jersey. They'd blown their causeways and bridges leading across the bay. We hit the bridge, got about halfway using the empty opposite lane that normally traversed with traffic heading into the city. The Dodge slammed into the divider. The dude clawed at Selena Shield, green ichor oozing from his lips. It hadn't dawned on me he might have been bit. We all had to learn new rules for a new world, the world of Zombiecraft. Fox brandished his daggers. For a minute he truly resembled his elf rogue. I held the dude by his neck through the window. Fox hesitated. "Kill him!" Selena Shield yelled, struggling with the zombie dude. "But he's such a good tank," Fox said. Then he drove both daggers into the dude's eyes. The bodies moved on us. Grimstalk Killer 5 fired off his M1. I grabbed a 45 and fired into the crowd, hitting bodies mostly in the chest, arms, but keeping them back. I hate melee combat. It was only a matter of time until we whined, and Grimstalk Killer 5 and I would be first. Selena Shield, get out, Fox ordered. Grimstalk Killer 5 will cover you. Selena Shield, our other raid tank, yelled a battle cry. She climbed over Fox and charged out of the truck, holding her club high. She knocked a body's head clean off into the river. One-shotted him, I yelled over the gunfire. Stay on the tank's target, Fox reminded us. Don't aggro the others. Grimstalk Killer 5 took out the bodies that clawed at her. She got around the truck, pulled the driver's door open. Fox kicked the dude's corpse out, dumping him off the side of the bridge. Farewell, Fox said, rubbing a tear from his eye. The dude always gave his damaged buffs to Fox, a strong bond in the game. The bodies surrounded the back of the truck. We couldn't fire fast enough to keep them down. Selena Shield jumped in and put the truck in drive. Then she floored it. Nicely done, Guild, Fox said. My chest tingled whenever our leader patted us on the shoulder. Once we get to Ocean City, we'll contact Cordelia, Anubis, Dancing Bear, Corombos and the rest. Maybe even go after them. We've always made a formidable raiding group. We'd survive. Grimstalk Killer 5's shock had worn off, and he grimaced from the pain in his leg. We need to stop once we're out of the urban areas, hit a pharmacy and grab some painkillers, I said. Some antibiotics too. I really enjoyed playing a healer.
People are the bad guys, and the zombies are the rising underclass.
T. Fox Dunham lives in Philadelphia with his wife Allison. He's a lymphoma survivor, cancer patient, modern bard and historian. His first book, The Street Martyr, was published by Gutter Books. A television series based on the book is being produced by Throughline Films. Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality or Searching for Andy Kaufman, a book about what it's like to be dying of cancer, was released from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing, and Fox has a story in the Stargate anthology Points of Origin from MGM and Fandemonium Books. Fox is an active member of the Horror Writers Association, and he's had published hundreds of short stories and articles. His motto is Wrecking Civilization, one story at a time. Find out more information at www.tfoxdunham.com.
Phil Thomas is an author and screenwriter from the suburbs of Philadelphia. His screenplays have been produced into 2 feature films, False Face and Always from Darkness, and are available in major retailers such as Best Buy and Target, as well as availability on Netflix and Amazon Prime on demand. His screenplay, 3 Tunnels, was a semi-finalist at the LA Screenplay Competition. He is a member of the International Association of Professional Writers and Editors, and he currently writes for Cultured Vultures, GameSkinny, and BloodyDisgusting.com. He formerly held the position of Senior Marketing Manager at Eternal Press, and was a journalist for Patch, where he wrote a daily tech column covering the latest electronics and gadgets. He lives in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and is currently working on his second novel, Worst Afterlife Ever.